Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of Coffee with Chad, and today we are going to discuss the attack on Pearl Harbor, stand downs, false flags, and the flat earth. So, let's get going. Alright everybody, I am Chad Taylor, author of the book, Where Are We? Earth According to the Bible. That's how a lot of people seem to know me anymore. At least that's the intro. But today, so 77 years ago today, December 7th of 1941, was the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now, I obviously was not around for that. You know, occasionally I'll meet people that were, are veterans from World War II, and I always make sure to thank them every chance I get. But the sad thing is there's fewer and fewer of them around. I mean, you got to think 1941. Let's say if you're 20 years old, you're born in, say, 1921 at that point in time. That was, what, 97 years ago? So, I mean, sadly, there's fewer and fewer of that generation around. And so I want to get into this with stand down. So how many of you guys have heard of there being a stand down with Pearl Harbor? That there was people that somehow in the know knew that was going to happen, and then for whatever reason, they shut off the radar stuff. There's some interesting things about Pearl Harbor that if you were one of the powers that be back then and you could, do a couple little things to just allow something that was potential to happen with no warning, well, what would be the implications of that? And so it's been probably 4 or 5 years since I've looked into the subject about Pearl Harbor being kind of a stand-down thing where, yeah, all these people definitely died and the Japanese did this and that, but was there enough warning ahead of time that could have been prevented? And if you were in control and in power back then, would you have wanted that to be prevented? And a lot of people say, well, what's the motivation? Well, if you want to get into a war, you just allow certain things to happen, and then you get the people behind you, and off you go, right? And so we can certainly see that with 9/11. I was 18 at the time, 9/11, my first day on the job at a new position, and I remember what it was like, and I remember seeing people's faces. It was my first day doing routes on this particular job, and so I got to see people's faces, going out on routes, seeing tons of different people's faces and their reactions to 9/11, to these events that happened that day. And it's amazing the traumatic experience that was. And a lot of people call it trauma-based mind control, where they can just play those images over and over and over, keep people in complete fear. And then at that point, we're willing to give up anything just to prevent something like this from happening again. And so same thing with, I think 9/11 is way more obvious than Pearl Harbor was, as far as the fishiness of it. Does the official story make sense? And so to me, with Pearl Harbor, I mean, the official story kind of makes sense, but what if there was ways that that could have been prevented, but certain people in the know wanted it to happen? And so just something to think about. I'm not saying there was or wasn't, but it's interesting to think about. And there's certainly an incentive there. And same thing like with the Gulf of Tonkin, for instance. Here's a article from The Guardian. When presidents lie to make a war, 50 years ago, 50 years on, we know the trigger for war with Vietnam was a fiction. Will it be another 50 before we know the truth about Iraq? And so that's from The Guardian, for instance, just one of the first things that popped up. And so, that's the question. And I think as the American people, we need to be questioning motives, and we need to be questioning official stories. And I take the stance of I don't know what happened with all these issues. I don't know. It's not like I have some secret insight into any of this kind of stuff, because I absolutely do not. I'm just like you guys. I have the same access to the same info as you guys. I'm just questioning things, and I want other people to really start to question these kind of things. And that reminds me of the Question Everything conference in Southern California here in February, QE2019.com. I encourage you guys to check that out, and if you can make it, definitely make it, because it's questioning everything. It's questioning the official stories, questioning why are certain things the way they are, and just question. It's okay to question. I was never taught it's okay to question what is accepted, because I wish I had. but it is completely okay. It's okay to question certain things. It's okay to question big topics. It's okay to question the earth. You know, what we've been told about the earth. It's completely okay, because there's a whole lot to learn when you start to question. So my thing is with stand downs, for instance. So with a stand down, how I picture this is, yeah, there's somebody wanting to do something to you, and it's allowed to happen. And so in my view, there's people behind the scenes in the shadows that are really behind, you know, they're kind of the real string pullers. They're the people that are really in charge behind the scenes, whoever they, quote unquote, might be. And so they have an incentive to allow things to happen. And for what purpose? It's to dominate us. It's to dominate the general public in way more ways than one. And so then there's the other instance of false flags. And so false flags, if you look up at the history of, picture boats, you know, back in the, you know, wooden boat pirate kind of days or something, where a boat would put on a different flag to pretend to be somebody else. Say they pretend to be this country when they're actually a different country's boat. They go blow up a ship or do something bad just to make, basically to frame the other country or whatever it may be. And so when you see, like with 9/11, for instance, you know, it's funny that the Saudi Arabians, supposedly, the official story, the Saudi Arabians were on this plane, they hijacked this stuff, they run 2 planes into the World Trade Centers, you know, the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, we go to war with Iraq. You know, what, how does that make sense? And then so on and so forth. And so were they really behind it? Did they allow it? Was it a stand down? Did they allow it to happen? Did they know it was going to happen? There's huge amounts of data to show that people knew it was going to happen. How many people, bigwigs, you know, happened to have issues where they didn't make it into work that day that would have been, you know, killed that day? There's just lots of super, super duper fishy things with that. With 9/11, if you guys are oblivious to 9/11, just look at Building 7. I think Building 7 is probably the most obvious, where there was 3 buildings that fell that day in New York, not just 2, 3. One of them caught fire, and it's the only steel building apparently to fall down due to fire, and just happened to. I mean, and then just so much fishiness. I don't want to get into 9/11 because, man, we could be here for days talking about 9/11. But that's the thing, is I don't have some kind of inside info at all into this subject, but question. It's okay to question. The Boston bombing, for instance, that was I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, with these 2 brothers. That was super duper fishy. If you look into that, same thing. The Sandy Hook thing, that's, you know, these school shootings. You know, what's the point of, if there was going to be fishiness with school shootings, why would it happen? It's okay to question, why would it happen? If it were allowed to happen or made to happen, all these different kinds of school events, for instance, why would it be allowed to happen? And so Sandy Hook, I think, is the most obvious where there is a question. There's something super fishy about Sandy Hook. You know, you look at the, excuse me, did things go the way they were supposed to go? And so if you look at like the ambulance, there's all these real ambulances that were held way back, you know, from getting to the school, and there were supposedly these kind of phony ambulances up front. And then with a lot of these, there's crisis actors. They have actual hired actors that they hire to be on the scenes with a narrative. So when they are interviewed, they give a consistent narrative of whatever it is they want to achieve. So if you guys aren't familiar with crisis actors, look into crisis actors. And if these things were 100% real events, why would they be hiring actors to be on camera? Like the dad, one of the dads at the Sandy Hook deal. You know, 1 second, so his daughter supposedly just died, and you see him, he's on camera, but he's not in the spotlight, and he's laughing and joking with some dude, and the next thing you know, oh crap, I'm supposed to be in character. And so he's going from, my daughter just died, but I'm laughing and joking with this guy, to turning around and, oh, I'm gonna choke up some fake tears. You know, it's just like, none of this is the official story. There are huge questions with all these. And so when you see school shootings, to me, there are completely fake, phony ones that are like Sandy Hook is probably the worst, I think. And then there's real ones that happen, but are they allowed to happen? Like you look at a lot of these and they have, oh, the FBI knew about this kid, but they didn't do anything about it. Oh, these people, he was called 25 times, I'm making up that number, but he's called tons of different times to the police about he's threatening to kill people at the school, and they don't do anything about it. So it's like a standout. Just hopefully this kid does something, because the narrative is to disarm the general public. The official narrative, it's to do that because it's another form of domination. And like I said a couple weeks ago, there's two things that keep this country free. It's God, number one, first and foremost. Absolutely. And one thing God uses to keep this country free are gun owners. And think of the with the United States and how we have supposedly, we're like the world police and keep everything free. Think of this, is that if gun owners keep this country free, second to God, knowing the powers that be know that there's hundreds of millions of guns out there in the hands of millions and millions and millions of gun owners that are willing to die to keep them, because we understand that without them, we are absolutely in servitude. We will be enslaved. It will be hell on earth, And so if you think the gun owners help to keep this country free in a big way, and supposedly the U.S. kind of helps to keep the world free. So if you want to look at it that way. But if you look behind the scenes, what does the U.S. do around the world? And I'm talking about Benghazi. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Benghazi's a big one. Man, there are so many of these. I mean, Vegas shooting, very strange. There are so many official stories that we get that it's important to question. That, yeah, in the Vegas deal, there was people that were actually killed, but is this one person responsible for it, or was he just a patsy, or was this? I have no idea. I just know it's important to question. It's super important to question. And then, let's see, got coffee. Yes. For those of you guys listening, we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and there's people interacting here. Thank you. It's always great to see you guys. And I got this coffee. I got a question for you guys. Keep calm and carry on. I don't know, just a coffee cup I've had forever. Like, is that just an old saying or what? Because I know, maybe 10 years ago it was everywhere, super popular. There's a coffee mug I want to get. It's called Keep Calm and Carry Guns. I really want to get that one. But anyway, it's coffee sipping break. All right. So, let's see here. San Bernardino. Man, there's so many. Sandy Hook is bizarre. Yeah, I would just encourage you guys, if you haven't looked into these things, look into these. But a lot of people, this is one thing I've come to realize. A lot of people want to live in a fantasy where this stuff doesn't exist, where they can just, I want to live my life, I want to pay my bills, I want to raise my family, I want to watch CNN. I don't want to put my brain into these kind of areas. And that's understandable, but you got to understand it's a fantasy. It is not real. It is a reality the powers that be are trying to put into our heads. And so I want to be in the game. I want to be part of the team. I want to go from being in the grandstands to being on the court. I want to be a part of this. And so a lot of you guys are the same way, and it's important to question everything. Let's see. And then, okay, so that brings us to also the potential false flags of our Earth. And that may sound super bizarre to many people, but if you look at Wernher von Braun, and if his story is true with the gal that, I forget her name, but she was with him in his end days, and he's kind of spilled the beans on certain things about, first this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and it's all fake, right? Well, the next two, he said, were going to be like a threat from space, like meteors or asteroids or whatever. And then he said it'd be the alien card would be the last one. But you got to understand, this is a former Nazi that helped start NASA, but he does have Psalm 19:1 on his headstone. I don't know, maybe he came to Jesus, hopefully, towards the end of his life. It sure seems that way. I have no idea, but it sure seems like it. Anyway, so the potential false flags of flat Earth. So with all this info coming out regarding the Earth and regarding that we are completely not on a spinning ball flying through space, what could it be to rein that in, to rein that knowledge in with the general public? What kind of event could happen? Well, to me, what I see is and I want to be wrong. I don't want this to happen at all. But what if all of a sudden on the news, we turn it on, instead of buildings flying into a tower, we see a town or two or three that have been obliterated by something we're told that came from space? What if something like that were to happen? What would that do to the world? And to me, I think it'd have to happen in a major player like the U.S. It'd have to happen. It couldn't happen to some country that most people have never heard of, because they probably wouldn't care nearly as much. So it'd have to happen to the U.S. or to the U.K. or to one of the elite countries of the world, I guess you could say. It'd have to happen to a first world country to get the emotion behind it, because what that would do is imagine when we question these things, we question 9/11, we question Sandy Hook. One of the responses I've gotten is, well, you don't care about kids, man. All these kids died, or all these people died, or this or that. Are you saying they really didn't die? And then you get these emotional ties. And so to me, it's another way to get an emotional tie with the globe, with getting you sucked back into the mindset of a spinning ball in space. And so that's one aspect I could see of to me, what the logical next step would be a space-based threat. Imagine on the news if they're like, dude, this asteroid is going to hit us in a month. How much fear and panic would that put into people? And then, it'd be like the Armageddon movie where they get Bruce Willis and whoever else up into space, and it'd be something, maybe not that far-fetched, but it'd be something along those lines to get people, all together. And try to, because if the general public can be in enough fear, we can be steered, like steer. Just like 9/11. After 9/11, I remember going into the Army recruiter, and I was, ready to be a sniper, and he said, "Yep, we'll send you off to sniper school, this and that," and I just had it in my gut, and it had to be a God thing, where he was like, what I felt. Sitting there in the Army recruiter's office at 18, maybe I was 19. I think I was 19 at this time. Already took the ASVAB, did well, and I was just signing on the dotted line, basically. And I just felt it myself, like, what if they send me a place I don't agree with why they're sending me there? And that's the only thing that kept me from going into the Army to be a sniper, at least try to be a sniper. So, anywho. And then the last thing I see is the alien deception. And I most of us are probably aware of that, with some kind of deception but there has to be fear beforehand. To me, there has to be some kind of fear events to happen. Instead of just one day, here's aliens. To me, there has to be a fear-based instance, and then the aliens show up pretending to be our saviors and pretending to be, fill in the blanks. And so it's important to talk about these kind of things. So with that, well, I know also there's lots of people like L.A. Marzulli on the subject. If you guys aren't familiar with L.A. Marzulli and his Watchers series, I encourage you guys to check out his series. I don't know what number he's on, 9 or 10 now or something. He's got super great research on aliens and giants and all this kind of subject, as well as Rob Skiba, Steve Quayle does. As far as I know, Rob's the only one out of those three that talk about, the Earth, how it actually is according to the Bible. But the other guys have great research on aliens as well. So, with that, it is time for
Funny Dad Joke Time!
That's right. Okay. Dad Joke of the Day. I tried to explain to my 4-year-old son that it's perfectly normal to accidentally poop your pants. But he's still making fun of me. That's right. You guys had those dreams where you are looking for a bathroom in your dream and you're like, I gotta take a leak really bad. And you're constantly for hours in your dream. Whew, those are scary, scary ones. Potential for disaster. Anyway. All right. Never happened to me, though. Nope. So let's see here. We have our ad, too. So after this ad, I'd like to take questions or talk about different subjects, whatever it may be. I wanted to save enough time at the end here. So our ad for the day. Brenda, did we get some ad for this one? We did? Okay. I remember this one. Here's a good one. We're very blessed to have these guys part of the show now. Let's go.
This episode of Coffee with Chad is brought to you by books. You should go pick up some books at your local store or wherever and read them because you might learn a thing or two. Results not guaranteed, but you really should.
That's right. Let's go pick up some books and read some stuff. You know, I think it was like half of all people after graduating high school never pick up a book again. It was something to that effect, just a huge percentage. I know going through school, I hated school. I absolutely despised going to school, but I think it's really important to read, to learn things. Anyway, yes. Okay, so I want to look through some of the comments here the last 5 minutes. So-called aliens are demons, fallen angels plus technology. Kat, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, if you look in the Bible at what are the things that the angels could do, and like, for instance, I forget all the names of the people, but there was a time where the angels put the guards to sleep and were able to break people out of jail, and the things, if you look at, the night abductions that people talk about, they talk about being abducted in their sleep, brought up to some spacecraft and have all these things happen. If you look at what happens in the Bible with what angels can do in the Bible, it sounds exactly like what angels can do. And so, or what angels have done or whatever. So anyway, that, is really suspicious to me, along with, a lot of the things that they talk about, people that are abducted, are about sexual stuff, where this is taken from the woman, this is taken from men. And if you look at Genesis 6, the kinds of things that are done with the blending of angels and people, and you look at you look up the things in the news today about genetics and how they're, what was it recently? This CRISPR babies, where they're the guy's name was he is out there, getting into DNA and doing different things. And if one dude's out there kind of in the spotlight, this is going on big time behind the scenes. It's probably been going on for a long time, unfortunately. Men playing God, probably being influenced by fallen angels or demons in the process. And it's not good stuff. It's not good stuff at all. So I love new book smell. That's right, Joe. And also, that reminds me, a lot of these things, when they're new, they come out, there has to be a reason for the general public, like I said. Oh, hopefully I'm not frozen. Maybe we can have babies that are not susceptible to cancer. Maybe we can have babies that are this or that. And so there's going to be reasons, like, the mark of the beast in the future. There's got to be reasons where, let me shut this off here. There's got to be reasons for us to have those kind of things. So there has to be the pros and the cons as far as the benefits of this. And so, like the mark of the beast, for instance, it talks about they shall seek death and not find it. And so the reason is to imagine this whole superhero nonsense that we see day in and day out, about superheroes. Well, if the mark of the beast can give you some kind of superhero type stuff, genetically change people, this is just me thinking out loud here. If they can get people genetically changed, and man, you can see in the dark and you can swim like Flipper and you can live to be 195 years old, who wouldn't be down for that? I've heard famous people asked about these kind of questions and they'd said they'd take it in a heartbeat. If something could give you those kinds of things. So what if the mark of the beast does something genetically to us to where we are no longer, because it sure seems like the people, 100% of the people that take the mark are cast into the lake of fire, is how it reads to me. And so what if it changes us in a way that we are no longer redeemable because we are no longer 100% human, or something to that effect? I have no idea, but it's an interesting subject. I know, first and foremost, do not ever take that, and make sure we teach our kids that, because it'll be awfully tempting. And then also, but there's the negative side too, where we won't be able to buy or sell. in the future. We won't be able to participate in certain things. So there's a negative side of it. So there's a positive side. Hey, here's probably these benefits to taking it, supposed benefits on the surface. And anywho, yep, DNA harvesting like the days of Noah. Let's see. Global warming. Yep, that's another one. It used to be global warming. Now it's what is the big term people use nowadays? I'd have a hard time with BS. It's whatever the term is. Anyway, hi everybody in here. Marla, Kat, Kevin, Griffin, Joe, Nate. Good to see you in here. Aurora. We're under an asteroid warning today even. Wow. Yeah, make sure you bring out your umbrellas. You know, and that's, you know, what we're told about asteroids and stuff. Obviously not true. You know, that there's some asteroid belt out there that blah, blah, blah. It's total BS. Here, I want to show you this. Here. I got my new fart gun here. So that's what the official story with asteroids is. All right. Good morning, everybody in here. God and Guns got the name for my new podcast, says Joe. Well, Joe, there's also that Lynyrd Skynyrd song. You probably heard of that. That's God and Guns, they keep us strong. It's what this country is founded on. Anyway, it's a good song. San Bernardino. Yep. So, don't forget Benghazi, Sandy Hook is bizarre. Do you guys have any questions? We got just a couple minutes left. But I think the SDUs provoked the attack. Good morning. Oil embargo. No aircraft carriers were in port. They were sent out to sea at Pearl Harbor. Yeah, there's I love the fart gun. There's so much fishiness. I mean, like with 9/11, for instance, the one other thing that stands out to me is the passport of one of the supposed hijackers was found like within just a few hours. And it was like, okay, so this plane crashes into a building, big ball of flame, just rubble comes down, and you happen to find one of the guy's passport. An FBI guy found one of the guy's passports just sitting right there. You know what I got to say to that? That's right. That's what I got to say to that. Yeah, that's BS. It's silly. But we bought it. We bought it hook, line, and sinker. Hoorah, let's go get those guys. You know, it's... anyway, question everything, just like the Question Everything conference. Rob and Dean Odell, any thoughts, Chad? You know, I kind of suspected I'd get that question at some point. To me, there's certain subjects that are worth, as far as brothers, getting into topics. And so when we are out there in the public, like for instance, if I say something publicly, you know, it's like I should be, and let's say if I'm wrong about something, then I think it's important to be corrected in public, because if I'm corrected in private but it's not made public, well then other people may be swayed by what I said that was wrong. Okay, so people like Dean or Rob or me or whoever else that's in the public eyes, I think it's really important, I guess, how we conduct things and how we treat each other and how we are, you know, rebuked or how we're whatever. Okay. So with Rob and Dean, for instance, to me, I don't want to get involved with these subjects. I don't feel led to get involved in all of this. But I do think it's important that whoever, let's say if I have a problem with, say Nate, for instance, I have no problem with Nate, but let's just say, for instance, I have some issue with Nate or whatever on here, which I don't. I want to make that clear. I darn well better be praying about it and being like, Lord, is this what I should be doing? Should I really be is this what you want me to do? How do you want me to do this? You know, Proverbs 3:5-8, you know, acknowledge the Lord in some of your ways. No, it's acknowledge the Lord in all of your ways. Lean not on your understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your paths. Well, so I what I'm getting to is that if I'm going to go after somebody, it's not going to be because I feel like it. It's not going to be because, yeah, I don't like the way he said this, so I'm going to attack him. I'm going to pray about this and see if this is something I'm led to do. And I hope these guys are doing the exact same thing. I'm not saying that they're not. I love them both. And so if the Lord is leading them to be kind of discussing these subjects out there, then so be it. If he's not, well, then they should stop. I have no idea. I'm not getting involved with this. And it's just because I don't feel led to. I don't feel led to. If God wanted me to get involved with their discussions back and forth, then I would absolutely do it in a heartbeat. But I don't feel led to do that, if that makes sense. So, what subjects? Well, yeah, I don't really want to get involved with that. But I love them both dearly. And, you know, these kind of things kind of need to happen on different subjects. I think as long as things are done in a respectful manner and there's not name calling or this or that, you know, because you got to understand, as believers, we're being looked at by people who are non-believers, who are infant baby believers, who are, you know, old believers. And so we need to conduct ourselves in a way that is representative of Jesus. Would Jesus be saying or acting this way? Could I see him saying or doing this? And I'm certainly, you know, like everybody, make mistakes, but it's a matter of conducting ourselves in an appropriate way. So however I would do that and interact with other believers if I have any problems, I would first and foremost want to acknowledge the Lord and conduct myself in an appropriate manner. I'm not saying one person is or isn't or whatever. I don't want to get involved with that, I should say, at this point. Yeah, seems that all the mess is causing division between brethren. Yeah, I could see that. You know, one thing too is that there are some things that need to happen, you know, and Jesus came to bring a sword and divide this person from mother from daughter, you know what I mean? Like, that the things that are true may be brought to light, I guess you could say, in a nutshell, paraphrasing here. And so, you know, this may be one of those, or it may just be not worth anybody getting to. I don't know, is this... Anyway, I think I've said enough. So let's see here. Okay. Anyway, we are at time here. Thank you guys for joining me. And appreciate you all for being here. Catch me on Tuesday. Let's see, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. And we'll see you all then.